January has a reputation in gardening. It's the month people expect plants to fail. Leaves yellow, growth stalls, soil stays wet longer than it should, and a plant that looked fine in December suddenly looks tired, and nobody can explain why. So we blame January. We say it's the cold. We say it's the lack of light. We say plants just don't like winter. But here's the part that rarely gets said out loud. January itself is not the problem. If January were truly hostile to plants, nothing would survive winter at all. Yet forests come back every year. Perennials return stronger. Trees don't panic when days get short. Plants understand winter. What they struggle with is something humans introduce without realizing it. If you've ever lost a plant slowly in winter, not suddenly, not dramatically, but in a way that made you feel confused and frustrated, this video is for you. And if you've ever tried to help a struggling plant in January and somehow made things worse, stay with me. Before we go any further, drop a comment and tell me where most of your plants live. Indoors, outdoors, or a mix of both. I read those and it helps me shape future videos around real gardens, not perfect ones. January is not a growth month. That sounds obvious, but most people don't garden like they believe it. Inside a plant, January is a slowdown, not a shutdown. A slowdown. Water moves more slowly from roots to leaves. Nutrients travel carefully. Energy is conserved. Leaves don't rush to grow. Roots continue their quiet work underground. From the outside, this looks like nothing is happening. And that's where the trouble starts. Humans are uncomfortable with stillness. When nothing changes, we assume something is wrong. But in nature, stillness is often preparation. The first thing people notice in January is usually subtle. A leaf droops slightly, a color looks less vibrant, growth pauses. Nothing dramatic, nothing alarming, but it's different enough to trigger concern. So we act. We water because drooping looks like thirst. We feed because pale looks like hunger. We move the plant because light feels weaker. Each action feels reasonable on its own, but plants don't experience actions one at a time. They experience patterns. And in January, those patterns are constantly being broken. In spring, plants recover quickly. Mistakes bounce back fast. In summer, growth is so strong it hides problems. Overwatering doesn't show right away. Extra feeding doesn't always cause immediate harm. January is different. January exposes mistakes slowly. A little too much water doesn't kill a plant overnight. It weakens roots quietly. A little too much feeding doesn't burn leaves instantly. It disrupts internal balance. A little too much moving doesn't shock the plant at once. It keeps it from settling. So instead of obvious failure, you get gradual decline. And gradual decline is the most frustrating kind. Here's something most gardening guides never explain clearly. Plants don't just respond to conditions, they respond to consistency. A plant can adapt to cool air, it can adapt to lower light, it can even adapt to dry indoor rooms. What it struggles with is change without rhythm. In January, people change everything without noticing. One week the plant is near a window, the next week it's pulled back because of cold, then closer again because of light. Watering schedules change, room temperatures fluctuate, care routines become reactive instead of steady. From the plant's point of view, it never finishes adjusting. Imagine trying to fall asleep while someone keeps adjusting the lights, the temperature, and the noise level every few minutes. That's January for most houseplants. The gardening world is full of advice, and most of it is built around action. Do this, add that, fix this problem now. That mindset works when plants are actively growing. But January isn't about growth, it's about holding steady. The hardest thing for many gardeners to accept is that doing less can be better care, especially when a plant looks like it's struggling. For a long time, I thought I was good at winter care. I paid attention, I adjusted, I tried to stay ahead of problems, and every year, January humbled me. I'd lose a plant or two, not instantly, just slowly enough to make me doubt myself. I blamed the plant, I blamed the weather, I blamed the room. I rarely blamed my response. One winter, I got tired. Not frustrated tired, mentally tired. I stopped adjusting. I left plants where they were. I watered less often. I ignored small changes instead of reacting. I didn't expect improvement. I expected decline. But decline didn't come. What came instead was something quieter. Stability. There was one plant in particular that always struggled. Every winter it dropped a few leaves. Every spring it barely recovered. That year, I didn't move it once. The light wasn't perfect, the room wasn't warm, but it stayed consistent. The leaves didn't grow, they didn't fall either. For the first time, the plant made it through January without drama. That's when I realized something important. January doesn't ask for solutions, it asks for restraint. A lot of winter advice sounds helpful, but it misses timing. Extra feeding assumes the plant wants to grow. More watering assumes the plant is actively using moisture. Constant repositioning assumes the plant can adapt instantly. In January, none of that is true. Plants are conserving energy. Roots absorb slowly. Internal systems are cautious. When we push growth during a slowdown, we create stress instead of strength. And stress doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like nothing getting better. Here's a pattern I see every winter. Early January, the plant looks a little tired. Mid-January, the owner starts adjusting care. Late January, the plant looks worse. February, the plant is blamed for being difficult. But the plant wasn't difficult, it was interrupted. January breaks routines. Holiday schedules disrupt watering habits. Heating systems dry the air. Natural light shifts daily. Gardeners become reactive instead of intentional. And reaction-based care is the opposite of what plants need in winter. Plants don't need to be rescued in January, they need to be trusted. Healthy plants don't look exciting in January. They look still. They look boring. They look unchanged. That's not failure, that's success. If a plant looks exactly the same at the end of January as it did at the beginning, it's doing well. But many gardeners interpret stillness as neglect, so they intervene. And that's where decline begins. If you garden on a budget, January can feel discouraging. You're told you need better lights, special fertilizers, extra tools. But the most powerful winter care method doesn't cost anything. It requires awareness instead of action. And that's what we're building toward. So far, we've talked about what January is not. It's not the enemy. It's not a failure month. It's not a time to fix everything. But we haven't fully named what actually helps plants recover. We've hinted at it. We've circled around it. In the next segment, we'll slow down and break it apart properly, not as a trick, not as a hack, but as a way of thinking about plant care that changes everything, not just in January, but year-round. Because once you understand this, you stop losing plants quietly, and that's where the real payoff begins. When it comes to helping plants in January, the secret is much simpler than most people imagine. It's not about buying something new. It's not about forcing growth or trying to make them look perfect. The trick is consistency. The kind of quiet stability that lets plants slow down without being disturbed. I know it sounds almost too simple to matter, but in my experience, it changes everything. Plants don't need us to do more this month, they need us to do less and to be steady. It's the one change that brings plants back faster than any product, light, or fertilizer ever could. So what does consistency look like in a real garden? For indoor plants, it's about choosing a single spot and leaving them there. Not the perfect spot, not the spot with the strongest sun for 5 hours a day, the spot that stays roughly the same day after day. When plants have this, they can adjust internally without being thrown off by small changes. If the light is weaker in January, it doesn't matter, as long as it's consistent. The roots learn to move water and nutrients in the same rhythm, leaves conserve energy, and the plant enters what I call a quiet recovery mode. For balcony or patio plants, it's the same principle applied to the weather. Sudden shifts in temperature are far more stressful than winter itself. A cold night followed by a warm day, then wind blasting across leaves, is far more harmful than leaving the plant in steady, cool air. Mulching the soil, shielding from direct wind, and letting the plant stay where it is teaches it that the world isn't unpredictable, and plants thrive in predictable environments. They grow when they feel safe, and January is about letting them feel safe. Small outdoor gardens follow the same rules. You don't need to add fertilizers or force the soil to wake up. You protect, you observe, and you let the plant's energy focus on what it already knows to do: strengthen roots, conserve energy, and prepare for spring. This is why so many gardeners panic in winter, because they see no action above ground and assume nothing is happening. But below the surface, life is quietly busy. One of the hardest things for gardeners to accept is that January is a pause, and if we overreact, we turn a natural pause into stress. I've seen it time and again. A plant looks a little droopy, so water is added. Another droop, more feeding. Still another, and the plant is moved closer to light. By February, the plant is weaker than ever. It didn't fail because of the season, it failed because we didn't allow it to be still. Watering is a big part of this. Many plants die in winter not from drought, but from too much water. Roots absorb slowly when it's cold, and excess moisture sits in the soil longer than usual. If the soil is constantly wet, oxygen is reduced, roots weaken, and problems appear slowly. The solution is counterintuitive: water less, not more. Wait until the plant genuinely needs it. Observe, don't schedule. This patience is the hidden gift of January care. Feeding is similar. Most fertilizers are designed to promote active growth. In January, plants are conserving energy, not growing aggressively. Adding nutrients when they aren't ready disrupts internal balance and can actually harm the plant. If you do nothing but keep your feeding to minimal, slow release, or skipped altogether until late winter, the plant will thank you, and the money you save can go to something you actually need in spring. Another mistake is constantly moving plants. Every time we rotate, reposition, or chase sunlight, we interrupt the plant's internal sense of rhythm. In nature, plants don't jump around. They stay rooted in one place through winter. They know where the light will come from, where the temperature drops will occur, and how to conserve. When we move them, we force them to adjust again, and each adjustment is energy spent, not conserved. That's why my one simple trick works. Trust the plant to be where it is. It's not just about physical placement either. It's about routine. Watering, checking soil, adjusting temperature, they should happen predictably, not every time a leaf twitches. Plants respond to patterns, not panic. When they have a steady rhythm, they recover faster, and by the time spring arrives, they're strong, ready, and vibrant. The difference between a plant that was moved and fussed over constantly versus one that was left in quiet stability is remarkable. The first looks stressed, the second quietly thrives. I remember a small row of balcony tomatoes that I treated differently one year. Every week I checked the soil obsessively, watered, adjusted pots, tried to reposition for light. Most struggled, some even lost leaves. Then I left one section alone. Same light, same airflow, same small watering schedule. By late February, those plants looked healthier than the ones I tried to micromanage. They had used January to quietly prepare for spring, strengthening roots and conserving energy. The lesson here is simple. Patience is care. Doing less, observing more, and trusting natural rhythms is what saves plants in January. That doesn't mean ignoring them completely. Watch for extreme issues, pests, sudden wilting, or severe temperature exposure. Intervene if necessary, but don't fix things that aren't broken. Stability is the key, not constant intervention. You can apply this principle everywhere. Windowsill plants stay where they are. Balcony plants get protection from sudden elements but aren't constantly moved. Outdoor gardens focus on mulching and shielding rather than feeding or repositioning. Over time, this creates confidence for the plant and for the gardener. You stop guessing and start observing. You stop reacting and start understanding. By February and March, the payoff becomes clear. Roots that were quietly strengthening now support new growth. Leaves that conserved energy turn greener. Stems that weren't stressed are stronger. The plants are healthier, and it's all because January was treated as a pause, not a crisis. Those who micromanaged might struggle again. Those who embraced stability enjoy effortless spring growth. Good gardeners don't rush plants. They don't panic at every droop. They cooperate with the season. They listen. January is not a time for action, but for trust. Trust that the plant knows what to do when left undisturbed. Trust that a little patience will save more leaves, roots, and energy than any intervention ever could. And trust that sometimes the best care is restraint. If this has shifted how you think about winter gardening, leave a comment. Share where your plants are and what your January routine looks like. If Urban Eden Garden has helped you grow more by doing less, hit subscribe for more practical tips. Your plants will thank you for the patience you give them now, and spring will reward you with stronger, healthier growth. Remember, January isn't the enemy. It's a teacher. It's a month that rewards stillness, patience, and observation. The plants you save in January won't just survive, they'll thrive. And that quiet growth, the roots building strength unseen, is the reason why every gardener should rethink how they care for their plants in winter.